I don't know if it's the truth, but they had a recording of Meek and Diddy
making love.
Are you surprised by the evidence that's already coming out in the criminal trial?
No, I'm not surprised.
Like, it's there. Okay, you have it? Let's hear it.
I experienced some of those things. Witnessed violence.
You can't take back what your butthole received.
What if the wildest whispers about Hollywood's hidden world weren't just whispers at all? For years, fans have speculated about what really happens behind closed doors in the music industry, but recently, Orlando Brown turned that speculation into a firestorm. In one explosive rant, he dropped names, painted pictures, and described scenes so outrageous that even longtime followers of celebrity scandals were left stunned. He didn't just accuse Diddy of living lavishly. He claimed there were entire underground gatherings, carefully orchestrated and hidden from public view. These weren't your typical parties. According to Brown, they came with strict rules, phones locked away, and NDAs stacked higher than the champagne glasses. And what shook people most wasn't just the existence of these so-called freak-offs, but the guest list he claimed was tied to them. We're talking about chart-topping rappers, beloved actors, and even some of the biggest names in R&B. The kind of people fans thought they knew, suddenly caught in the swirl of speculation about a world most could barely imagine. And the internet didn't hesitate. It clipped, replayed, and dissected every word Orlando said. Were these wild claims the ramblings of a troubled star, or the messy truth that insiders have been trying to keep buried? What makes this story even more gripping is how much of it connects to rumors that have surfaced over the years, suspicious friendships, strange business partnerships, even viral videos that suddenly look very different when put under this new light. So buckle up, because once we break down the details, you'll see why fans believe Orlando Brown's bombshell may have cracked open a door that was never meant to be unlocked. When Orlando Brown decided to speak, he didn't hold back. He didn't ease into it. He didn't drop hints. He went straight for the jugular. In one of his most talked about rants, Orlando claimed that Diddy's world wasn't just about music, power, or flashy celebrity status. According to him, there was something far darker operating in the background, a hidden culture of wild gatherings that most people couldn't even imagine. He described them as freak-offs, events so secretive that simply being invited was a risk. Guests were allegedly stripped of their phones at the door, forced to sign heavy paperwork, and ushered into private spaces where the normal rules of Hollywood didn't apply. Orlando painted a picture of a scene that was carefully organized, not chaotic, every detail managed, every move controlled. And what turned his rant into a viral moment wasn't just the claim itself, but the names attached. Orlando suggested that these weren't random faces showing up, but some of the biggest stars in entertainment. He made it sound like a twisted initiation into the industry, something you couldn't escape once you were in. The internet immediately split in two. Some dismissed his words as the ramblings of a troubled actor with a history of outbursts. Others, however, leaned in, connecting his claims to years of rumors about Diddy's private life and the shadowy side of fame. Orlando didn't provide proof, but the raw confidence in how he spoke made his story impossible to ignore. And the more people listened, the more they wondered if even a fraction of what he said was true. How deep does this underground world really go? The real shockwave hit when Orlando started dropping names. He wasn't vague, and he didn't dance around it. He pointed directly at some of the biggest stars in music in Hollywood, turning casual gossip into explosive allegations that instantly lit up social media. First came Usher. Fans already knew about his history with Diddy, stories of him moving into Puffy's house as a teenager, supposedly to learn the ropes of the industry. Orlando's words made those old interviews and comments resurface, suddenly looking a lot more suspicious than they did at the time. People online began connecting dots that had been hiding in plain sight for years. Then he mentioned Meek Mill. Their friendship was never a secret, but Orlando's claims of matching fits and private trips together sent the rumor mill into overdrive. Photos of the two suddenly resurfaced, with fans scrutinizing every detail for signs of something more than just industry camaraderie. But Orlando didn't stop there. He tossed Will Smith's name into the mix, calling it one of the best-kept secrets in Hollywood. That alone sparked an avalanche of speculation, with people revisiting long circulating whispers about Will's private life and asking whether Orlando had just confirmed them. Other names crept into the conversation too. YK Osiris, spotted on beaches and private jets. French Montana, with that infamous oil-covered birthday clip that looked stranger in hindsight. And even Diddy's past relationships with Cassie and J-Lo, both of which fans suddenly viewed through a new lens. Each name Orlando threw out wasn't just a statement, it was a grenade. And with every explosion, the internet dug deeper, determined to prove or disprove the wildest claims. If Orlando's claims about the guest list raised eyebrows, his description of what actually happened inside these gatherings pushed things into pure chaos. According to him, these weren't your typical celebrity parties with drinks, music, and networking. They were something else entirely. Carefully staged environments designed to strip away limits and blur every line of normal behavior. Phones, gone. Security, unshakable. Flights were private, cars were tinted, and once you stepped through those doors, the outside world disappeared. Orlando described multiple rooms set up like different stages, each with its own vibe, its own soundtrack, and its own purpose. Guests could move freely between them, but once inside, there was no hiding. The details he painted were chillingly organized. Staff swapped out sheets like clockwork. Playlists shifted to match the mood, and oils, drinks, and props were kept ready at all times. It was less like a party and more like a production, run with precision. Then came the rumors of hidden cameras. Orlando suggested that every angle could have been recorded, not just for entertainment, but as a form of leverage, insurance, in case anyone ever tried to talk. That possibility alone was enough to send fans spiraling. The idea that footage might exist of some of the world's biggest stars in compromising positions, that's the kind of rumor that never dies. Whether people believed him or not, Orlando had planted the image, an underground scene, locked down and highly controlled, where rules were erased and reputations were put at risk the second someone walked in. What made Orlando's story even more unsettling was the way he described the system behind it. These weren't random, last-minute parties thrown for fun. According to him, they were part of a carefully built network with layers of control and influence that kept everything quiet and everyone in line. Invitations, he claimed, rarely came directly from Diddy. Instead, handlers and middlemen reached out, often under the guise of business opportunities, studio sessions, exclusive events, or private celebrations. By the time you realized what you were walking into, it was already too late to turn back without raising eyebrows. And it wasn't about money. Orlando suggested these gatherings were more valuable than cash because what really mattered was access. Being in those rooms allegedly meant you were in the circle, connected to powerful people who could shape your career overnight. But that access came with strings attached. The paperwork, the NDAs, those weren't just standard legal forms. Orlando described them as trophies, proof that you'd crossed the threshold into something you couldn't easily walk away from. Once you signed, the implication was clear. You owed something in return. Maybe it was a verse, maybe it was a public endorsement, Maybe it was silence when rumors started flying. To Orlando, the system wasn't about pleasure, it was about leverage. Those who joined weren't just guests, they became part of a network where favors, opportunities, and reputations were all currency. And once you owed a debt in that world, paying it back wasn't optional. If Orlando was right about the system, then the real danger wasn't getting inside, it was trying to get out. According to him, once you stepped into that world, the consequences followed you long after the party ended. Walking away clean was nearly impossible because the connections, the secrets, and the leverage never really disappeared. Careers told part of the story. Orlando hinted that certain artists seemed to hit strange turning points after being tied to Diddy. Features that should have happened suddenly vanished, collabs fizzled out, and opportunities dried up without explanation. It wasn't always obvious at the time, but looking back, fans noticed patterns, like artists rebranding overnight, taking unexpected wellness breaks, or posting cryptic spiritual captions that felt like quiet cries for distance. There were also the detox eras. Groups of friends who once looked inseparable suddenly drifted apart. Public photos stopped, social media tags vanished, and people who used to orbit around Diddy reappeared months later acting like they'd never been close. For fans digging through timelines, those gaps looked less like coincidences and more like cleanup. Behind the scenes, Orlando claimed, the real cleanup happened with silence. People knew better than to speak out because the risk of footage, rumors, or even just lost opportunities kept them in line. Whether or not the cameras were real almost didn't matter. The fear that they could exist was enough to keep mouths shut. To outsiders, it looked like just another cycle of fame, but to insiders, it felt like the cost of being in too deep. If Orlando's rant lit the match, the internet poured gasoline on it. Within hours, fans, bloggers, and conspiracy channels were digging through old interviews, forgotten photos, and archived posts to see if his story lined up with anything from the past. And the deeper people looked, the stranger it all began to feel. Clips of Usher speaking about living with Diddy as a teenager resurfaced, now framed in a completely different light. Paparazzi shots of Meek Mill on private jets suddenly circulated with new captions, as though they were puzzle pieces to a larger picture. Even old footage of French Montana's oil slick birthday moment reappeared on timelines, fueling the narrative that Orlando's wild claims weren't entirely made up. Fans also turned into detectives, tracking unfollows, deleted posts, and sudden distance between industry friends who once seemed inseparable. To them, the timing of these shifts wasn't random. It looked like damage control. Why did certain celebrities cut ties so abruptly? Why did others go completely silent just as rumors flared? YouTube breakdowns and TikTok theories stitched everything together like a digital crime board. Arrows connected names, timelines, and receipts, with creators arguing that Orlando might have only said out loud what insiders already knew but couldn't admit. Whether people believed the theories or not, the conversation became unavoidable. Every celebrity tied to Diddy suddenly found themselves under a microscope, their old posts and interviews dissected for hidden meaning. For the internet, it wasn't just about proving Orlando right, it was about exposing a Hollywood web that fans were convinced had been hidden in plain sight. Out of everything Orlando Brown said, one detail haunted people the most: the possibility of footage. He claimed these gatherings weren't just about secrecy, they were about control. Rumors swirled that cameras were hidden in the rooms, capturing every move without guests even realizing it. And whether or not that was true, the idea alone was enough to send chills across the industry. Think about it. If even a fraction of that footage existed, it would be the ultimate leverage. Careers could be destroyed, marriages shattered, entire brands dismantled overnight. Orlando suggested that this wasn't just paranoia, it was part of the design. The fear of exposure was a chain, keeping people quiet long after they walked away. Fans quickly picked up on this point, pointing to how certain stars seemed extra cautious whenever questions about Diddy came up. Interviews where celebrities laughed nervously or dodged direct answers suddenly looked more suspicious when rewatched. The internet began speculating that silence wasn't loyalty, it was survival. Even more chilling was the thought that the footage might never need to see the light of day. Its mere existence, real or rumored, was enough. Just knowing you could be exposed was often all it took to stay compliant. That invisible pressure, according to Orlando, was the real reason why so few dared to speak. For many viewers, this was the moment his story crossed from wild gossip into something darker, a system built not just on influence but on fear. And once people considered the possibility of hidden footage, the entire conversation shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't about what happened, it was about what could be revealed. Years have passed since Orlando Brown first shared his claims, but the story hasn't faded. It's only grown murkier. Social media remains a minefield of speculation, with fans endlessly revisiting old posts, photos, and interviews, trying to connect dots that may never fully align. Every new clip or vague comment from someone connected to Diddy sparks fresh debate, keeping the rumors alive. Some celebrities have stayed quiet, others have tried to reshape their public image, but the echoes of those alleged gatherings linger. Orlando's account, whether fully true, exaggerated, or somewhere in between, created a narrative that can't easily be ignored. It gave fans a lens through which to view old interactions, private trips, and seemingly random career moves in an entirely new way. Online, discussions have evolved into a mix of theory, evidence, and skepticism. Some users dissected patterns in social media activity, tracking shifts in friendships and public appearances. Others focused on interviews and public statements, looking for subtle hints that might confirm or debunk the claims. The debate has become almost cultural, part of a larger conversation about power, influence, and secrecy in Hollywood. Even beyond the internet, Orlando's allegations change the way people think about private celebrity spaces. Rumors of controlled environments, hidden cameras, and strategic leverage forced a reconsideration of what really happens behind closed doors. It's a reminder that fame isn't just about glamour, it can also be about hidden power dynamics that the public rarely sees. In the end, the story is far from closed. Every new post, every resurfaced video, every cryptic comment keeps it alive, and fans remain fascinated, endlessly debating what really happened. Whether Orlando's claims are fully accurate or partly exaggerated, the legacy of suspicion and curiosity continues to shape the conversation around Diddy and those closest to him.